Hello, welcome back to Loki's Librarian. If you are new here, welcome. I am your librarian, Katrina, and if you are new here, this is where I review a book and mix up a cocktail in the process. I call it Books and Booze. This month I'm looking at things way back, starting with historical fiction, making this week's book Stonehenge, 2000 BC by Bernard Cornwell. The accompanying cocktail is Stonehenge. It is 30 milliliters of Navy strength gin, very specifically Navy strength, 30 milliliters of crabapple juice, and 230 milliliters of brown ale. Could not find crabapple juice. Cran apple is actually a good substitute for it because the cranberry creates the bitterness that the crabapple usually would have. So let's do this. This book opens at a pivotal moment in time, and one that is recognized as such by the tribal people around whom the story is built. They don't have cities yet. They have, like we have, right? They live in small palisaded settlements of the sort where everyone works, even the chief, because it's still subsistence survival. It's still hand to mouth, right? They got to make sure everybody, if you want to eat, you got to work, and that's how it goes. And because they are tribal and very atavistic, their priests and even the common people see signs everywhere. They have to. They live close to nature, and nature is fucking terrifying.
That little rat-looking thing just got ate. Damn, nature, you scary.
Oh no, where'd my milliliter marks go? 30 milliliters. And this is going straight into the glass. No ice, no shaking, no stirring. You just throw it in the glass. Oh God. Navy strength gin, fun fact, I learned this, is actually a higher proof, higher alcohol by volume, because they used to store the gin casks next to the gunpowder on the ships, and they needed to make sure that if the gin slopped over, it wouldn't fuck up the gunpowder's ability to light, so it has to have a higher proof. Fun facts. Fun things you learn when you're mixing up cocktails weekly. Womp. Now the 230 milliliters will be fun because I don't have 230 milliliters on here. Wait, 50? Yeah, okay. I mathed that right in my head. So they know it's a pivotal moment. So the pivotal moment happens as Lengar, who is the oldest son of the chief Hengel, has been tasked with teaching his younger brother Sabin how to hunt and survive the manhood trials, which Sabin has not yet taken. He's about 6 years younger than Lengar, who is a man at this point. Doesn't actually give dates or ages. Why would it? Those things weren't reckoned. It was just when you reach approximate summers, you get to go and do the manhood trials. So Lengar's a man. Sabin is not, except Lengar really resents having to take his younger brother out and teach him these things. And it's quite obvious that Lengar hates his younger brother and resents being given this task, but he does it. And as they are out, they see an outlander, someone not of their tribe, riding through. And they start to follow and stalk him because this could be dangerous, right? Outlander of the tribe could be dangerous. I have to get creative with my pour here because I don't want this to foam up and go all over the place. Boom. Ooh. I'm going to have to pour that next a little bit slower. Okay, so the outlander eventually stumbles into one of their temples, and it's clear that he is already injured, and he asks to see Sanus. Now, they don't speak the same language, but Sanus is a well-known sorceress, not of their tribe, the Rathrans, but of a nearby tribe, the Cathalos. Lengar is terrified of her because she's a sorceress, right? Everybody is terrified of those who can wield magic. And his first inclination is actually to take the outlander to his father. I want to clarify something here. Cornwell does not call them the Rathrans and the Cathalos. Those are what the towns are called. But saying town of Rathran, town of Cathalo, it's going to get bulky. There are other towns that I will refer to as tribes for ease in this review, but in the book they are towns, not tribes. They're just the people who live there. Now the outlander shows gold. All right, he's like, hey, take me to Sanus, here's some gold. And it's a lot of gold. It's enough that Lengar realizes he could buy his own troops and possibly take out the old man, jumpstarting his own career as chief. Except that Sabin has also seen the gold and will surely tell Hengel this. So Lengar shoots the outlander, then turns towards Sabin, who wisely runs away, screaming the whole way back to the settlement, where a showdown commences between Hengel, who demands the gold, and Lengar, who wants to keep it. Lengar gives in, but his resentment grows. He doesn't want to give up the gold. He wants to keep it. He found it. It's his. He killed the outlander. Blah, blah, blah. And that night, an immense storm tears through Rathrin. The head priest Hyrek speaks to Hengel, and they decide that the gods are unhappy and a sacrifice is needed. Now, Hengel decides to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Not actual birds, but his middle son. He has a son between Lengar and Sabin, Camaban, who was born with a club foot. Camaban apparently means crooked child in this language. And Hengel tries to deny that Caliban is even his, even though everybody knows that it's clearly his son. When Caliban's mother died, he chased Caliban out of the settlement to go and live in the forest as an outcast. So he decides that Caliban should be the sacrifice, and Herrick agrees because, hey, outcast or no, Caliban is the son of the chief and should be a worthy sacrifice to the gods. Caliban, this whole time, has been taking care of one of the forgotten temples. All right, I mean, it's still a temple. It's actually the temple the Outlander ran to, and that's where he's been kind of living, and he sees visions. He hears voices. He is sure he is one of the gods' chosen people, the sun god Slael. Even though he also has a birthmark that is it's like a crescent moon, which means that he's marked for Lahana, the moon goddess. Okay. He's very good at world building, is Bernard Cornwell. Let's try this. I mean, the beer's the overwhelming flavor profile, but you could see where it'd be a bit extra boozy with the gin in there. It's okay. It's okay. I can drink this. This is decent. They round up Caliban from the forest. He snagged a few of the gold lozenges while Langer chased Sabin, and used those to scare the ever-loving bejesus out of Herrick, who fails to complete the sacrifice, decides the sacrifice has been rejected, and then dies a few days later. All of this is very evil portents from the god, right? Sacrifice fails. The high priest dies. They had this huge storm. Brother tried to kill brother. It's chaos. Caliban vanishes after this, and he resurfaces in Cathala, where he pays those pieces of gold to Sandus to teach him magic and to fix his clubfoot, both of which she does. He still walks with a limp, but his foot is no longer bent and twisty. Then he leaves again, parts unknown. We don't see him for a few chapters. A few weeks later, a trading emissary from the Outlanders arrives, and it turns out they are the Sarmenans, and they offer lots of goods specifically for that gold. All right, that gold had been stolen from them by one of their younger sons who wanted to be chief, and it is important to their sacred rites in worship of Eric, aka the sun. The Rathrans and Cathalas know this as Slael. However, Hengel has a different plan, and he declines their trade, pointing out the gold came to them and must be intended for their worship. Sarmenans leave. The Rathrans head to Cathala, where Hengel makes a purchase with the gold for some large stones to erect a new temple to Slael near their town. And a marriage is agreed upon between Darwin, who is the Cathala chief's daughter, and Sabin, who is of the age to marry her after he passes his manhood trials. And these become the first stones of Stonehenge. Now, Hengel thinks this will appease the gods and bring favor back to the Ratharin. Langer gets pissed. He doesn't understand why they would use the gold to buy rocks when they have perfectly good wood temples nearby, the big trees and all of that, and they could have had all those trade goods. And so he takes off. He takes off in the night. He leaves one of his henchmen, Jaeger, behind. Hengel decides Jaeger has acted wisely and does not kill him for Langer's perfidy in leaving.
Right next to a huge steaming bowl of foreshadowing.
I wouldn't have trusted him. I'd have killed his dumbass, but whatever. Hengel was a wise and just man. As the stones are delivered and built, Sabin passes his trials, and it's determined that his and Darwin's marriage will be the first ceremony celebrated at the new temple. The day of the dedication, however, ends in bloodshed and misery as Langer returns with his troops and troops from Sarmenan. He has promised to return Sarmenan's gold if they help him take the village from his father and take Sabin away as slave and build a new temple with a temple from Sarmenan. Basically, he wants to buy one of their temples, one of their old ones. They don't necessarily have to use it. And Langer claims Darwin as his own and passes her around to his favored troops. So she is, he doesn't go into details, but clearly this is not a consensual relationship. So Sabin is dragged off, and once they're pretty far away, his master Herrick frees him. Says Caliban needed Sabin to be out of Ratharin. Caliban is seen as a sorcerer and a quasi-holy man in Sarmenan, and Sabin is brought to this town where there's some conflict with the local priest who eventually comes to see things Caliban's way, mainly because their ritual sacrifice, wherein they have a specially chosen girl walk into a fire and self-immolate, fails. And this girl, Orena, is astoundingly beautiful, so much so that her parents raised her knowing that she would be chosen to be a bride of Eric. So she grew up knowing she was special and was meant to be married to the god in this sacrificial rite. But the sacrifice fails because of another massive rainstorm that day. It's England. There's going to be massive rainstorms everywhere. The wood wouldn't catch and burn, but she still tried to walk into the fire, so it was determined that Eric had rejected her as a bride. So she marries Sabin. They have 2 children, a boy and a girl. And the temple stones from Sarmenan are transported back to Ratharin. So Langer agrees to build the temple because Caliban tells him that it will be to Slael, who is also, conveniently enough, now a war god. And Langer, of course, wants to be the greatest warrior ever. What he is a tyrant. People fear and loathe him. Darwin escapes his clutches about 3 months pregnant and kills the baby that was once it was born because she wants to work magic with the parts. She does. She returns to Gathala, where Sanus was murdered by Camaban, which they know because Camaban was seen limping away, and she rallies Gathala to wage a brutal warfare against Ratharan. So, like 20 years of war, right? Several years later, and he goes into the process of how the stones are lifted and moved and everything. I mean, but that's only the background of the story. That's the backdrop against which all this other drama takes place. All the stones that Sarmenon is required to deliver to get their sacred gold back are delivered except for one, which was conveniently stolen the day before the delivery was made. And Sabin is pretty sure Langer arranged for that theft so that Langer wouldn't have to give the gold back. Sabin is there for the final delivery, as are Arena and their 2 children, because Camaban believes it is necessary, and Arena, as the moon goddess incarnate, agrees. Arena is pretty sure she is still the bride of Eric, and that Eric speaks to her in her dreams, that her fate is with the new temple being built in Ratharan, and that Sabin is meant to build that temple. And if you are feeling bad for Sabin married to batshit crazy, there's more.
But wait, there's more.
Now, Langer says he won't deliver the gold because a stone is missing, unless Sabin hands Arena over to him as a new bride for Langer. Arena agrees, but swears that Eric has told her it will be fine, she won't be raped. So Sabin is kind of horrified watching this, and it is fine, because Camaban shows up that night and kills Langer and becomes the new chief of Ratharan, because everybody is sure that Camaban's great power as a sorcerer has marked him as chieftain. Okay. So Camaban knows they are going to need a lot more people, and even more stones. The temple that they had taken from Sarmenon, while it looked great in Sarmenon, because it was surrounded by mountains, it fit there. Out on the wide open plain of Salisbury, modern day Salisbury, it does not fit. It looks squat and dumpy, and it's not what he wants. So he knows they're going to need more rocks, people to do this. Cathalo has the stones they need. Cathalo despises Camaban as much as they hated Langer, because they know Camaban killed Sanus, and they're like, no. They don't, however, hate Sabin. Darwin maintains fondness for Sabin, not just from their engagement where they got to know each other quite well. They don't have the Christian Moors. There wasn't this thing against premarital sex. They were very fond of each other. They were looking forward to many years of happy marriage together, and that was disrupted by Langer. She doesn't hate Sabin. She knows he was very much a victim, just as she was. But additionally, in the middle of all this, during one of the during the negotiations, tribal negotiations of an intermediary tribe that is not relevant other than being the intermediary tribe, basically, they knew they'd have to get these stones from the Sarmenons up to the Ratharans, so they had to negotiate with this intermediary tribe. Sabin was there for that, and he killed Jigger, who was one of the more vigorous rapists of Darwin, and brought his head to Darwin as tribute and justice for the crimes done against her. So she's fine with Sabin. She maintains fondness for him. She knows that he recognizes justice and when it needs to be done. And they remain friendly. But, Camaban sends Sabin to negotiate for the stones and labor Camaban is going to need to build the temple he wants. And Darwin says, only if you bring me the head of Camaban. That's the only way I'll do this, because he killed Sanus. So there's another war, because tribal conflict, and Cathalo loses, even though they're outnumbered, because it's seen that Camaban's magic is greater, basically. And Darwin is, really what he's using is tactics, but it was seen as magic, and I get it, right? If it's something you haven't seen before, it's going to be impressive, and you're going to be like, okay, cool. Apparently that guy's very magical. So Darwin is goes into hiding. She's an outcast in the forest. And from this point forward, Camaban thinks she might still be alive, but he can never really prove it because she's an outcast and she remains hidden. But they never found her body, so that's why he thinks she might still be alive. The people of Cathalo remain loyal to her and feed her intel throughout the rest of the book.
The foreshadowing.
Now, back in Ratharan, Arena, The crazy bride swears that she's been having dreams that the new temple will reunite Lahana, aka the moon, with Slael, the sun. And as Lahana incarnate on Earth, she can't give offense to Slael/Eric by engaging in relations with Sabin. And to make sure nothing happens, she's going to cut off all of her hair like she's a widow. Basically, she's divorcing him. She just doesn't tell him she's divorcing him. She's like, no, we'll totally be together again after the temple is built. But for now, I have to live as a widow. So I'm going to cut off all my hair, and I'm going to go live in Cathalo and take over being their priestess there. You stay here. And we're not going to have sex until the temple is built. So Sabin's really motivated now, right? Because he still loves her. Yes, she's batshit crazy, but as some guys say, there's something hot about batshit crazy. And she is beautiful. So she's living in Cathalo. The people there are awed by her beauty, but still loyal to Darwin. And Darwin says, basically, let her be. You know, she's batshit crazy, but she still has a part to play in this. Darwin's magic is very real. So they leave Orenna alone. Sabin builds the temple. And he does. Even though Camaban keeps sending out raiders for more, it keeps changing his mind on what he wants, right? Camaban keeps saying, oh, now I need the stones to be level. No, the stones need to be polished. The stones need to do this. And Sabin does it. He makes it happen. And one of the wonderful things about Cornwell's writing is he gives us a great deal of thought and thinks of how this could have been possible with what they had on hand, with what tools they had on hand. How could this have been done? And he comes up with a very plausible explanation for how they moved the stones. Now, is that how it was done? No, we're never going to know that. It was 4,000 years ago. But he comes up with some good explanations for how things could have been done and why there was nothing left behind to show how it was done. Namely, since everything that was used in the transportation of the stones was sacred, they burned it in a sacred fire. Hey, I accept that reasoning. That makes perfect sense. So, Camaban keeps sending out raiders for more and more slaves to do the labor to build the temple, and the slaves are all promised their freedom when the temple is built. Again, foreshadowing. One day, while burying his uncle at the tribe cemetery, Sabin spots this half-moon inscription, which is Darwin's signal that she wants to speak with him. Typo. Fix that. So after sending the rest of the funerary party home, he hangs out a bit, and she brings him her handmaiden, Kilda, and her daughter. Now, Darwin's daughter is too young to really survive as an outcast in the forest. She's like 5. And she needs Sabin to take Kilda, the handmaiden, and her daughter, who will be called Hannah, and protect them. So Sabin does. And during a trip to Cathalo to obtain one of the largest stones, Kilda sneaks him to an overlook where a ritual is taking place, and shows him that Orenna has been practicing to be the bride of Slael with Slael's earthly representative, Camaban. Again, all of this, like the pieces are there. Like, I even tagged it out. This little pink tab right here on the corner. I'm like, that's where he saw that the first one is the foreshadowing, because it says something like, your brother claims to be Slael, the flute player said, so why shouldn't Orenna be Lahana? And that's all it says. Like, there's a flute player. That's his line. I'm like, oh, foreshadowing. That's totally going to happen. And then my very next pink tabby, boom, 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 45, about 30 pages later is where it all goes down. And he sees it happening. And so when they're leaving Cathalo the next day, Sabin's basically heartbroken. He's relaxed because, hey, if she can, he can. So he starts boinking Kilda that night. And while they're leaving, his son with Orenna approaches him and says, hey, I don't want to be a priest. Mother wants me to be a priest. I don't want to be a priest. I want to take the manhood trials, and I want to be a man. I want to come with you. And so he says, sure, come along. What's she going to do? Stop you? Come on. And Orenna gets pissed because her dreams have told her son is meant to be a priest. And the son is like, I don't want to be a priest. And the dad is now like, fuck you, bitch. You're fucking my brother. I'm going to take my son with me. And this one I quoted, so it's a highly memorable passage, because they're like, oh, finally, Sabin finds a backbone. Orenna says, he can't go with you. How can he live with you? You have a slave woman in your bed. You keep a slave whore and her bastard. And this cheeky bitch is pissed that he's having sex, and she's having sex with his brother. Sabin snaps back, but at least I don't dress in a bull dancer's cloak to cover her. She is my whore, not Slael's whore. God bless him. I like almost stood up and clapped. I was like, that's a bitchin' line. Well done, Sabin. I mean, he is righteously pissed. And he has taken a lot of shit from Orenna over the years because of her visions and her faith in her dreams of Eric and Slael. But in that moment, he's like, this has nothing to do with Eric and Slael. He dumped the batshit crazy bitch. And that bitch, in a fit of malice and pique, tells Caliban that Hannah is Darrowyn's daughter, which Sabin is forced to swear on his own daughter's life that Hannah is not Darrowyn's daughter. And now Sabin has to finish the temple or his daughter's life will be forfeit because the gods will kill her for his perfidy. He swore on her life that Hannah was not who Caliban thought he was because he made a promise to Darrowyn that he would protect Hannah. So now he's between a rock and a hard place, basically. And the climax is pretty awesome, and it is also terribly sad. It's a whole lesson in action meets consequences. A lot of death, not necessarily death you would expect, but it was justice. Terribly sad justice, but justice. Cornwell is a wonderful storyteller. I mean, he builds this entire world, including the theologies and peoples, around the building of Stonehenge, around this one moment in time. And around the building and the moving of the stones, which, and again, he's very plausible in how this could have been done. Now, for those of you who don't read historical fiction, Bernard Cornwell is the guy who wrote Richard Sharp's series. That's probably the one he's most famous for, aka the only character badass enough to survive being played by Sean Bean. And his historical fiction tends to be well researched. The details he includes in the book, the Outlander at the beginning was killed by the 3 arrows. There was a body found near Stonehenge that dates from about that time that was found with 3 arrows in it. There was another body found nearby that was buried with goods Caliban carried around and used in the book. So details like that. He researches this stuff and then weaves it into a narrative. Now, having said that, Cornwell includes a historical note saying flat out, this is clearly a work of fiction. He doesn't want anybody thinking that he's like Orenna and he's having dreams of divinity and what happened, right? I mean, no one knows what gods were worshipped 4,000 years ago in Britain before written records existed. I know a lot of people like to say it was the Druids who built it. Well, the Druids didn't exist until about 1,500 years after Stonehenge was built. So who erected Stonehenge? Who built this? And why? And these are the questions that he answers, I mean, fictionally, obviously, because this is a work of fiction, and it's brilliantly told, but it is fiction. But he endeavors to answer those questions with Stonehenge 2000 BC. I quite enjoyed this book. He is a marvelous storyteller. The books of his that I've read, I've always enjoyed, and so this one was pretty easy to pull in and finish in very short order. And that's it for this week. If you liked what you saw, don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you guys next Sunday. Bye.